Hi there, Trevor here from Double Bill Movies. Right, well, as the question asks, is Blu-ray lying to us? And the answer is yes. Not all Blu-rays though. So basically I've written a load of notes here because there's quite a lot to get through. And some of you took part in the image polls that I put out on my community page. And that was really helpful. I'm very grateful for everyone who voted on those. There was no right or wrong answers. I just wanted to see what you guys thought. So let's see now. Yeah, not all Blu-ray releases have been lying to us. Only the ones that have had a blue tint or some other colour tint applied to them. So lots of modern films these days have these lovely colour palettes. And I watched a video recently that explains this really well. I shall put it in a link in the description below. And sorry if you move around because I've got you on a lap tray. And sorry for the sniffing because hay fever is being a bit of a pain of late. So yes. So that video basically just explains that depending on how much detail is required in a specific scene or a certain shot, may determine what lenses are used and what format they record or the video in. And this video explains those different formats. And the amount of detail required will determine what colour palette is applied afterwards. So where they set the colour gamut, the colour space, basically, how much colour is available, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave that video to explain to you how that works. But colour palettes can help set a mood and an overall feel to a film. A lot of Jerry Bruckheimer movies have lovely sort of greens and yellows. Obviously, a lot of his films were done with Tony Scott, and Tony Scott likes to put a brown tint along the top of the screen to create an image. Look at Top Gun and all that kind of stuff. Now, they're done in camera. Those ones were back in the day. But once things became more digital, they were then able to apply different color palettes afterwards. It still meant manipulating the image from the scan from the celluloid film. So, you know, it's not that they stopped making them on film. They were still made on film, but obviously now most films are shot digitally. But so yes, setting a mood with a colour palette. Let's pick a sunny scene. Let's say, for instance, it was shot during the summer when it's actually hot, but the scene they're trying to depict is actually autumn or even winter. Now, obviously, it's hard to do winter when you've got leaves and stuff on the trees. So if they just want to make it look a bit colder, they can do, still keeping the sun in the overall image, but they give it a more of a bluer look, a colder look, as opposed to a nice warm orangey sort of feel. And you can do that the opposite way round. If you've shot a scene and there's no trees involved, and they're shooting in the autumn or winter, but they want it to be summer, you know, they put the actors in the clothes to give you the impression of summer, and then they just warm up the picture afterwards. Just depend on the shooting schedule and this, that, and the other. So, so aside from that color palette situation, I do believe that there's quite a lot of Blu-ray releases have had a blue tint applied to them. Now this is applied to the master prior to the Blu-ray being authored, so this has nothing to do with the authoring. The authoring house will receive the master as per intended. And I think this is done to help the difference between the DVD and the Blu-ray image. So as DVD authoring got better, The image quality's got better. Our TV's also got better, and our DVD players got better. So even if a Blu-ray was created from the same master as the DVD, then you won't see any difference, especially in the color palette as such. So it was good that the first poll I put up was Pirates of the Caribbean, because that reminded me why the DVD image and the Blu-ray image looked exactly the same, because they were created from the same master. Now later on we'll get to some of the older films that would have had a DVD release, and the master would have been created purely for the DVD, so the color palette would have been set for the DVD, and that later on a brand new master would have been created for the Blu-ray. So we'll get to that in a minute. But so yeah, and as I've explained before, most 4Ks that come with a Blu-ray in them, the Blu-ray has been authored from the same master that was used to create the 4K, the UHD. So that's why, again, there can be very little difference between the two formats, when we're supposed to get this wow factor, aren't we? So I think that's why this colour tint had been applied to a lot of titles. And so in a minute I'm going to try and basically record my screen and go to my gallery and go through lots of stills that I took off my projector, because I did more than Pirates of the Caribbean, Heat and Saving Private Ryan, because I wanted to get as many examples as possible. So yeah, so adding the blue tint can exaggerate detail. So you know, you can't necessarily see it now because this is not film quality, but obviously the pores on my skin, if I was to apply a tint, I don't have the means to, but if I was able to apply a tint to the image you're looking at now, it would exaggerate the pores on my skin, especially in where I've got the sun on me here. And if I was much more shaven, then and it would exaggerate the stubble as well, and things like that, details like that. So that's when you see these close-up shots of people's faces and you go, oh wow, look at all that detail. It's not that it's not there, of course it is, but this blue tint will exaggerate it. So when you finally get to see the 4K and it looks like, oh hang on, there's less detail. It's not that there's less detail, it's just not being exaggerated anymore. You're seeing it in its natural form, in its natural light. Yes, there may still be a color palette, you know, a color style to the film image, but it's not there to play the part of exaggerating detail necessarily. That is why when sometimes we look at these 4Ks and we may think, oh well, they've put DNR all over this because all the detail's gone. No, they haven't. It's not that. We know that Predator 3D and now I haven't seen the Terminator 2 4K, so I can't truly comment. I do need to get hold of that so I can look and see what all this heavily DNR looks like. But I imagine it's the same as the Predator 3D, where they had to DNR everything and make everything look waxy for the 3D process. And if the Terminator 2 4K was created from the same master that they used to create this Terminator 2 3D, then that's why that looks like that. But some of these films where people have said, oh, there's lots of DNR applied, I've watched subsequently on my projector and everything, and I thought, no, they haven't applied DNR. Pirates of the Caribbean did not look very good because I think it was authored badly. It's an upscale from the Blu-ray, The blue tint has been removed. That's why the third image in that poll looked very different. Yes, there's still a lot of blue in the image because it's nighttime. It's supposed to be the moon coming through, and the whole mood of the image and the color palette of that film is like that. And I'll show you some more stills that I took from the same film in a moment. But so as we know, cinemas used to project celluloid film, and what we would see was exactly what the director intended, and whatever color palette they gave the movie, even black and white movies, they could give it a sepia tone. They could, still manipulate the monochrome image in such a way to give it a certain feel, a certain look. I watched the Cold It story on Blu-ray recently, and on my new setup I've now noticed that actually has a sepia tone to it. It's not just regular black and white. But celluloid film basically has no resolution, essentially, unless it's blown up beyond life size. So to our perspective in the cinema, if the screen is too big and you sit too close, then that's when you see the image start to break up and you get the sort of the heavy grain, and it doesn't look as normal, doesn't look as lifelike. But when you're sat the perfect distance away and what you're seeing on screen looks life size and the same as to what you're seeing when you look around in the real world, that's when the image will just be so pristine and perfect, and the grain will be much finer and that sort of thing. But in the mid-2000s, the digital age of cinema came about, and cinema started projecting digital films. These would have been sort of a 2K resolution to start with, but very quickly changed to a 4K resolution. So in 2013, most cinemas then had changed, got rid of all their film projectors and changed to digital projectors. And like I said, started presenting us with 4K movies. But these would be uncompressed files, so there'll be far better image quality than the 4K discs that we have at home. So if we look at our 4Ks at home and think, wow, that looks amazing, if you didn't see it in the cinema, you kind of missed out, because it would have looked even better in the cinema. But if you watched it if you did see it in the cinema, and then you watch it at home on your setup, you might think, oh, well, this doesn't look as good. Well, no, it won't, because it's compressed. And obviously compressing that, you will lose some of the colors, and you will lose some of the detail as well. So, that's a compromise we have to make. But I'm really, really impressed with the way physical media has gone, and its ability to squash these massive files down and put them on a tiny disc, and let us watch them in our homes. So I've alluded to before the rough size of the image for Blu-ray. This was before we started doing 4K. So for Blu-ray purposes, the image file that we sent to us to create the Blu-rays was a terabyte, or around a terabyte. So if you think that the discs that they were going onto was a maximum of 50 gigabytes, that's a hell of a lot of squashing to get that image on that disc, isn't it? So yeah. So what else? Right, so yes, this is what I've put. So this color tint, this is where the light comes into the equation. As I've mentioned before, this tint can exaggerate fine detail. Thus, when the title gets remastered and we finally get to see the image in 4K, the tint has been removed and the original colour gamut restored, or mostly restored. So the tint and the colour palette will go back to what it was in the cinema. So yes, there will be some, like I said, a little bit of detail lost and some colours missing, but you know, we're talking about such fine gradients in colour that we don't really notice it. So the video I mentioned earlier has a screenshot of the difference between 8-bit colour depth, 10-bit colour depth and 12-bit colour depth. And let's say it goes from, I think, 16 million colours up to something like 60 billion colours. Once I get to the images a bit later on, I'll show you, or you'll see it in the video yourself. But so a standard was set for digital video back in 1990 for broadcast, and this was called Rec 709. Now, if you're a bit like me and you watch some of these technical videos talking about TVs and this, that and the other, you may have heard this. So, you know, DVD and Blu-ray can handle this format, Rec 709, but 4K has surpassed that. So they've had to come up with a new one. And that is Rec 2020. And there is another one as well, but I can't remember what it is. So, and that means that's where the more colours become available. There's another great image that I found that shows the colour space difference. So you may see in your player the numbers 444 or 422 or 420, and that depicts the colour space. And to me, that would be the 420 would be sort of your DVD image, so very few colours, but because of the resolution, it doesn't show up that bad. And then when you go to Blu-ray, you got sort of you could still do Blu-ray at 420, but 422, let's just say that's the Blu-ray version. There's a lot more colours, but they're still not quite representative of real life. And to me, this is why some of the skin tones will be really red. So sort of this side of my face is redder. I've actually got the light on to help light this. Yeah, I'll probably get one of those circle lights one day to light me properly, but I like to kind of do it naturally. But you'll watch Blu-rays and stuff and you'll see the skin tones are very orangey, reddy, brown, and it's like everyone has a tan, but that's not always the case. And then you get to the 4K and we see the colours as they're supposed to be presented to us, and the skin tones look more natural, i.e. this side of the face. And I've got some images to show you there too. So yes, a lot of the time from DVD to Blu-ray there was no remastering done. They just used the same master that was used for the DVD, but of course they wouldn't have to it wouldn't be as compressed. A lot more of the colours would be presented to us that were there in the first place, and that's why when we look at some of the images later, even in older films like The Goonies, there's no difference between the DVD, which would have been much, much older and way before high definition video came around, to when the Blu-ray was released, but yet the colour palette and image almost looks the same. And then you'll see that the 4K is very different, and vastly improved over the Blu-ray. So that was another BD that, sorry, that was another 4K that people complained about. Now I haven't actually watched it, and I do need to watch it because I've got a little theory on that. I'll explain a bit later. So yeah, it's me just repeating myself. So let me just go over the polls slightly before I actually go and show you them again. So the first poll, obviously, Pirates of the Caribbean. Basically, you all picked the Blu-ray as the image you preferred, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And when it came to the second poll, that was a still image from Heat. You all picked the DVD image as your favorite color palette. And I think the 4K was second and the Blu-ray was last. But then when it came to Saving Private Ryan, initially you all picked the Blu-ray as the worst looking image. But as more and more votes came in, the DVD kind of overtook that as the worst looking image. Now I can understand that. I actually liked the colour palette on the original DVD. I think it was very stylized, and this is where the whole thing of there being lack of colours, and to me this is why the image looks so sort of dark and not very good. So stretched it out to the 4K, which according to that poll didn't have any votes on, or like very few votes as the worst image, means that you lot preferred the 4K image. And you know, that's a good thing. So with billions more colors available between the DVD, sort of 16 million colors and 60 billion colors, you got the same sort of color palette but presented in a much better way. So it's not as dark, it's not as there, you know, the DVD image appears to have black, green and a bit of blue, doesn't it? But when you get to the 4K image, it's the same sort of tones, but there's a lot more colors in between. I'm hoping that makes sense. The Blu-ray was just too bright. It was just, you know, that's where I've said before, people think is 4K too dark, but you know, I actually think Blu-ray is too bright. So let's see. Right, let me stop this and let me try and go into my screen record mode and see if we can look at some images, shall we? Hello, I'm here in the top corner. Okay, so yes, what you're seeing here is all the images I took. So this is the image of the 444, the 422 and the 420. So there you go, 25% of colors, 50% and then 100% of colors. You know, that just kind of gives you an idea of the difference in color. So you've got, let's say 2 or 3 colors on DVD, 5 or 6 colors on Blu-ray, and then 8 or 10 colors on and you can create a much better image that way, can't you? So the next image, this is the bit depth, the color depth. So bit rate applies to this. If the bit rate is low, your colors are going to be a bit messy, and it's going to cause issues. So the higher the bit rate, the better the sort of the color depth you get, I think. So there you go, 16 million, and you can sort of see the resolution as well, 256, and then 10-bit you've got 1 billion colors. That's a lot of colors. But then you get to 12-bit and you've got 68 billion colors. So this is why you're probably not liking the 4Ks, because for 15 years you've been used to an image that essentially has been lying to us, even without the blue tint. the Blu-ray image has just not been presenting us with as good an image as we first thought. I'm not dissing the format. The format is brilliant. Obviously, I'm filming in HD, not UHD. I could film in 4K on this camera, but yeah. So what you're seeing is essentially the same as a Blu-ray, but and this is your resolution. So there you go. In the bottom right corner, let me just get rid of that. So in the bottom right corner, you got video CD. Now, I know when I did a video using this image before, I called it VHS, but it's because I couldn't see what it actually said. So yes, video CD. Then you've got the DVD resolution. And then, you know, some Blu-rays came out that were 720 files, but were upscaled to 1080 interlaced image. But 720 was what everyone who bought a HD ready TV, they were 720, but they could take a 1080 image. They just couldn't show it progressively. Now all HD TVs will show a 1080p image. So there you go. The next green section is the size of the image from a Blu-ray, and the red bit, and I guess the little pink bit on the left or right, depending on how you're looking at this, that's your 4K image. And as you can see, the DVD image will fit sort of, I mean, that's, to me, that aspect ratio is a 4:3 aspect ratio. So if you were to then stretch that out to a 16:9 aspect ratio, you could see that it fits 4 times into the 1080p image. But as you can also see, the 1080p image fits 4 times into the 4K image. So yes, there we go. Right, so this is the Goonies. So the top we have, I've tried to get the same still as best I can. But for £1,000 4K player, it doesn't do frame skip. Yeah, anyway. Right, so the top 3 images are DVD. And what I could probably do is zoom in. And there you go. There's chunk. And you can see some of the artifacts that show up on DVD. Now I've been, not to the house, but where we're looking at the trees, we parked on that road and looked back at the Goonie house when I visited the States the last time. So then we go up to the Blu-ray. Now the image looks a lot better. The image is a bit broken up there. The image is a lot more solid there, but you see what I mean about the colours? They're sort of even more exaggerated. They're slightly more natural on the DVD image than how red and solid they are on that image. And there's those ones again. I've got these full frame, so I just wanted to show you them like this. And then we go. To me, that's the 4K image. That's way more natural. Now, the reason there's not much detail on their faces, I realised, is because they're children. They've got very fine, soft skin. Now, I needed to look at an image of the adults and look at the pores on their skin and this, that and the other to see if the DNR had been applied like people think. But I don't think it has. I think it's literally just, you know, even there's not pores of skin and everything, because like I said, they're children and they've got very soft skin. So and there's chunk again. You can see him a lot better there. So if I show you that one, look at the color palette difference. Now you may like that image there, but that is way more natural and more lifelike as far as I'm concerned. Now the way I took these images was I used the Pro settings on my camera, on this phone that I'm filming this on now. I set the white balance, I set the exposure, and there was another setting which set the image on my phone to look as close to what my eyes were seeing on my screen as possible. And then I didn't change those settings at all. All I did was change the discs. And these are the images that I captured off my screen. So what you're looking at is my cinema screen. And there you go, that's a much more natural representation of the trees and everything. Now, yes, you may sort of think, well, hang on, maybe they wanted that mood, like I talked about earlier. But maybe not. Maybe this is actually the color palette they originally went for. And if someone has a 35mm film of this, they could then, you know, compare it, and we could see which image is most accurate. So there we go. That is, what image is that? That's the DVD, I think. Yeah, so this is the images. You can see how sort of low resolution that is. And then there you go, there's the Blu-ray image. A bit more controlled, but again, the color palette is just, it's a bit too solid, if you see what I mean. It's the only way I can describe it. There's more detail there. So the high resolution, definitely, but this is the same master as the DVD. So maybe it shows how good the original masters are, but obviously DVD compression ruins it. I'm sorry if this is weird to look at. This is the only way I could think of doing this. Try not to move too much. So then I go along, and then we go. There's the 4K image. Look, you can see at the bottom of the image there, my phone in the black bar. But there you go. Look at the detail in their hair and everything. Much more natural skin tones and everything like that. And there we go. Yeah, I could say the grass does look a bit blue, but maybe that's just the way I didn't quite set the camera right. Because it's very, you know, this is not a professional camera, but there are just professional settings on. This is a phone. Yeah, I'm sorry if this is a bit weird. I'll try and there's that one. So all the trees and everything look, to me, a lot more natural, a lot more lifelike. So what we got next? Right, so Saving Private Ryan. This is, I think these are in a funny order. This is, I think, the 4K. Yeah, they are in a bit of a funny order. So that's the 4K image, the one that you didn't vote on. So you obviously like this one. And yes, he's soaking wet, so the brown of his uniform is a lot darker. But there's still plenty of detail in his hair, and that sort of stuff. Now, what it doesn't show is the amount of detail that I could see on screen. It has lost some detail. But now this one, as you can see, is much more green. This is the Blu-ray. And I wish I could get these next to each other. I have really sort of struggled to do this the way I exactly wanted to, without doing it on a computer or something, which I don't have. But there you go. That to me just looks awful. It all sort of washed out, but for the wrong reasons. And that's the DVD. So if we zoom in, you can see how it sort of breaks up. I'll try and do this slowly. And we'll go to the 4K. And how much that doesn't break up, if you see what I mean. So yes, That is the DVD. It must be the DVD. That's definitely the DVD. Now, as I said, I quite like that. I like the stylized image there, but it's perhaps a bit too dark. It's lost a bit too much detail. Now, I expect if I put it on my TV, it would show off a bit better, because obviously the picture is not so big. But because I'm blowing it up on my screen, and then so that must be, oh, I can't remember what order these images are in now. Well, there you go. This is the heat one. So at the top there is your 4K. In the middle is the Blu-ray, and there's the blue tint I'm talking about, the teal look. And now the second image is actually Robert De Niro. You could just see him there when the police are on the stakeout and they're in the back of the lorries. So that's obviously, like I said, the 4K. That looks quite natural to me. Now, apart from the blocking that you can see, that is not from the Blu-ray. That's just my camera. Yes, so look at the colours there. That to me doesn't look right at all. And same with Val Kilmer here. That to me looks a lot more natural than this silly teal colour that just doesn't look right. And all the shadows around the gun and everything. But then the DVD, again, this would have been a stylized image. And there you go, there's the DVD. That looked to me better than the Blu-ray does, because the colors are not quite as intense. And same there. That's your Blu-ray image. That's the one you've been watching for the past however many years. That's the 4K image. Okay, you may not like that, and that's understandable. So that, like I said, there's no wrong answer. And there's the DVD one. But this is the one I gave you the poll. There's the 4K. There's the Blu-ray. And there's the DVD. So what else have we got? So here we go. This is now if you see it sort of more full screen, you know, how natural does that look to you? Look at the detail in that image. If I leave it there for a bit and you can sort of study it. And I go to the next one. There you go. That's how much we can see De Niro in the shadows. So these will all be the 4K images. I just personally much prefer these color palettes to then this. You know, thankfully, when I watch these on my screen, the intensity that you're seeing here isn't as visible because it's blown up to such a big size. It washes out. So actually, to my eyes, there was very little difference between all three formats. So I was thinking, well, this isn't going to work, until I looked back at the images on my phone and realized, they're very different. Three very, very different images, color palettes. And there you go. That's a better one of De Niro in the shadows. And then him in the truck. And then we go back to the DVD. And that doesn't look too bad. That looks quite natural. So HDR clearly has made all the dark areas in the image darker, and all the and some of those will encroach on the brighter images to make the brighter areas smaller. because it concentrates and refines the brighter images, makes them more natural, the brighter aspects of the picture. And there we go. That's them in the shadows. This is in the car park when they think they've the long-haired guy has been shot and he disappears. He's like, "Well, where's he gone?" So, you know, some of the street lighting may have caused a bit of this, but clearly Michael Mann wanted a certain colour palette for this film. So even the DVD. Okay, so now let's go to... Right, I'm going to go this way on this one. Let's pick up here. So this is 310 to Yuma. Now, if you remember, I'll link it in the description below my review I did for this. Not the 4K, but I did a double bill movies of the Criterion black and white version of the black and white original film, and the 2007 remake, this one. At the time, I only had the means to watch the Blu-ray, but now I've got the 4K, you're going to see the difference. So this is the DVD image. Again, another stylized image, and the skin tones are very red, very orange. That looks pretty natural to me, but again, skin tones very orange. And then we got this. If you look at the red on the sign that says Land Office, you'll see it better in the next pictures. I didn't quite get this right. But again, all their skin tones are pretty orange, and the shading underneath the awning. Now the Blu-ray, in my review of or my double bill episode of the two versions of 310 to Yuma, I said that I always used to think the image was too orange on my TV until I set my TV to movie mode. It was still orange, but it was a lot less orange and looked a lot more natural. So what I was hoping for when I got to 4K was that everything would still look stylized, but a lot more natural. And so again, skin tones, and there you go, Land Office. So just keep an eye on that red there. And now we'll go to the 4K image. How different is that? Again, no changes to the camera that's taking these pictures, but only the disc. And the only thing I changed on my projector was the resolution, so I didn't upscale the image. So this is a native 4K, and the DVD image was 576, and the Blu-ray image was 1080. And there we go. Still, you know, he's nice and tan still, but he's not orange. The horse looks really natural, and the shrubbery and woodland around him just looks really natural. And then look at that. The wood looks like wood. You know, it's not orange, but it's still nice and stylized, and the red sign is maybe not quite as red as we thought. But there we go. So that's a massive difference in the color palette. Now, if I go back to this, we'll check out Pirates of the Caribbean. So we'll start with, I think this should be the DVDs. So there we go. Look at the reds. So again, as I said before, the DVD and Blu-ray here would be the same master. So that's why there's going to be very little difference between this image and the Blu-ray version of this. So that's, you know, that looks natural. It doesn't look unnatural. But there we go. There's your two-tone sort of got your teal, heavily teal on his shirt and everything, and the orange and brown around the dog. And then this one, I took this one just to sort of show to me how much better the 4K is, even though it's still not a very good 4K. So now if I go to the Blu-ray images, see, not much difference. It will just be resolution that's better. And obviously I didn't quite get the same frame. But I did manage to get the same frame here and the 4K. So, and there's that one again. Still the same sort of teal and whatnot, but again it's going to be because you're looking at the same image as the DVD. And there's that one. So now we go to the 4K, and then we go a completely different color palette. I would say a little bit colder looking, but to me more natural. And let's look at the dog one. The color palette's still there, but it to me is much more balanced, much more natural, not so intense. And with the last one, again, there we go. You know, a nice stylized look, but to me a lot more natural looking. So got a few more to show you. Now I watched The Last Boy Scout and the Blu-ray, and I noticed, to me it looked absolutely awful, so I went and bought a DVD. And these are from the DVD. Again, a very stylized film, another Tony Scott film. Let's get rid of those bits. There we go, you can see more of the image. Now to me, if we got a 4K of this, it would look so much better than this does. So, you know, lots of colours there. Again, this is the DVD. And look at this one. You know, it's raining. It looks quite natural to me. But again, it's just the DVD. So if I perhaps zoom in, and you can see how poor the image quality is. And then this one, even the DVD had a bit of problem with the fluorescent light in the fish tank. But if we look at her denim top, it looks like denim. Then we go to the Blu-ray, and this coloured tint has been applied, and look how much darker the image looks. Yes, it doesn't look awful. This actually looks quite nice to me. But in other places in the film, it looked awful. There we go. That says BD. So that's not much different. Then that's quite a bit different to me. But this is the one that's the worst. There you go. Look at the teal on her denim. So this to me is more proof that these images have been lying to us. Now I realise that I've gone on quite a long time, so I kind of want to wrap it up there. I did do a couple of shots from Pearl Harbor because I was adamant that there was going to be a difference between Pearl Harbor. But no, this is also when I realised that the Blu-ray was created from the same master as the DVD. And there you go, there's very little difference between them. Can't really get them. No. Anyway. So there's a look at the 4K and the Blu-ray of Saving Private Ryan again. Yes, in some ways that image is more natural, but it doesn't fit the stylized film. It doesn't look like a movie. That to me looks like a movie. So it swings and roundabouts, but there you go. That's why I think the Blu-ray image has been lying to us. Not all releases. I don't think any of the boutique labels have ever had a blue tint applied to the master that they've asked for or had created to do their Blu-rays, which is good. So Yes, like I said, it's not sort of to be mixed up with an intentional colour palette. Look at the Bad Boys films. You know, Michael Bay, he's also one for these nice yellow and green colour palettes, but again, that's with Jerry Bruckheimer. Training Day had a yellow tint applied to it, but as I explained in my review, that's to me to do with keeping the day uniform, because it takes place in one day. But they didn't shoot it in one day, did they? They would have shot it over many weeks and many days and many different types of weather. So to apply a specific colour palette to that will help make the whole film more uniform. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I hope it wasn't too boring, and I hope it wasn't too crazy for you to look at. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got plenty of interesting stuff in my playlists, because I used to work in the industry, so I have a series on how physical media is made, and I've used some of my knowledge to create this video today, and some of my understanding of how these discs are made. I've even got a tour of Pinewood Studios, would you believe? So the first episode of that explains how that works, because clearly I'm not taking you to actual Pinewood Studios, but you will get a tour of Pinewood Studios through this series. And I've got other things like unboxings and reviews and hauls and that sort of stuff. Even a bit of acting thrown in there somewhere, I'm sure you can find. But there you go. Till the next video, which won't be as long, take it easy.